Well, good morning, everyone. This is Jack Zemlicka, Managing Editor of Precision Farming Dealer. Welcome to our latest webinar. Today's event is brought to you and other pre-registrants free, courtesy of Agri-Trend. And our presenter today is Darren Howie, General Manager of Agri-Trend, an agronomic services provider based in Alberta, Canada. And joining him today to share their firsthand experience implementing agronomic services into their dealerships are Lance Lindblom, Agri-Coach with Torgerson's, an 8-location Case IH dealership group based in Montana, and Scott Meldrum, Integrated Solutions Manager at Van Wall Equipment, a 25-location John Deere dealership group based in Iowa. Understanding the connection between today's farm equipment and the agronomic service potential it offers is an increasingly critical part of evolving a dealership's business in precision farming. But knowing where to start and setting attainable goals is essential. Finding the right partner to help plan and execute the addition of agronomic services will help bridge that gap between hardware and data management, enabling your dealership to provide quality services and leadership to your farm customers. In today's live webinar event, which is part 2 of a 3-part series, Darren, Lance, and Scott will discuss how progressive farm equipment dealerships are developing profitable agronomic services through the use of Agri-Coaches and third-party collaboration. So before we turn the controls over to Darren, just a couple of housekeeping items. On your screen, there is an arrow you can click on that will open up a question field and allow you to submit questions at any time during this presentation. And time permitting, we'll look to answer as many of those questions as possible following the presentation. If we don't get to all of them, we'll make sure to get them to our presenters today and have their answers posted on our website along with the archived video replay of this webinar, so you can go back and review it again if you'd like. If for any reason your internet connection or even our connection should happen to fail at some point and it looks like the webinar has been interrupted, you can go back to that email you received earlier telling you how to join, and you can re-enter the program that way. With that, I think we're ready to roll here. Thanks again for joining us. We will now turn over the controls to Darren Howie to begin his presentation. Hey there, Darren.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate everyone's time here this morning, and we'll get things kicked off. As Jack mentioned, my name is Darren Howie, and I'm the GM of Agri-Trend. Agri-Trend was founded in 1997, and I've been with the company since 2000. I'm an agronomist, and prior to joining Agri-Trend, I ran a number of fertilizer and crop input dealerships, including custom application, seed, fertilizer, and crop protection products. And so came from a crop protection agronomy background, and we saw a need to develop a program for independent agronomists to provide value to farmers. And so one of the things we wanted to focus on was developing a business model and an agronomic process that agronomists could run their business, providing direct support to farm customers, not tied to the sale of crop inputs. And my background came from a sales agronomist standpoint, where I worked with a fertilizer dealership and provided agronomy services to farm customers. And the challenge of that model is you have to deal with a lot of customers, and oftentimes with different management practices, it requires a greater level of time and attention to work with those farm customers to adopt different things, and in particular, precision agronomy, precision ag requires that time and effort to go with those farm customers. So we developed a program called the Agri-Coach program, and the Agri-Coach program is where an agronomist will work with 15 to 20 farmers in their local area. Coaches use the Agri-Trend business model with defined deliverables for their farm customers. It's a disciplined approach of crop planning, problem solving, and in-field support. And so the Agri-Coach will work with a group of growers in their local area and provide that support to those farm customers. A key element of our program is a quality control process that maintains consistency of the deliveries of those prescriptions to those farm customers. So an Agri-Coach will go out and gather information from their farm customers and develop a prescription for nutrition or crop protection. And prior to delivery to those farm customers, that prescription comes into a quality control coach. And the quality control coach will review that prescription so the farmer knows that at least 2 agronomists have reviewed those recommendations prior to being received. And that's maintained consistency in our delivery to our farm customers. Additionally, what that does is that for a business owner that has Agri-Coaches working in their business, you know that those Agri-Coaches are supported and are delivering a recommendation that is strong for your farm customers. The other thing that quality control process has enabled us to do is to secure errors and omissions insurance coverage for those coaches, and that insurance coverage again ensures that it gives you the confidence as a business owner that those coaches are delivering a consistent service to your farm customers, and it's backed by Agri-Trend, and you can have confidence that your customers are getting that good value. Streamlining the process for the coach is key. The coach needs to work with a number of farm customers, and they need to be able to have a business that's generating revenues and can ensure it's profitable for that business. And so early on, it became apparent to us that we needed to have a system, a software platform that would enable us to handle the quality control and also allow the coaches to scale their business. And so we developed some software that is really designed to work in conjunction with the business model to ensure that the farm customers are getting their deliverables and there's connectivity between the farmer and the coach. As well, it enables the coach to deal with the number of customers that they need to deal with. And so that software platform was another key element of the program. The other component of the program was we need to ensure that new coaches and their farm customers were supported by had support for training and shored up any weaknesses or areas for improvement with those coaches. And so we developed a program called our Senior Agri-Coach program. Senior Agri-Coaches have either a master's or a PhD in a given discipline, and they support the coaches. And so the Senior Agri-Coaches work for Agri-Trend, and they deliver training and support to our coaches. So when a new coach comes on board, they go through a period of time where get up to speed and get ensured that they have everything ready to move forward in providing the service to the farm customers. And then from an ongoing standpoint, twice a year we bring the group together, and in addition to do training. In addition to that, Senior Agri-Coaches are deployed out into the field with the local Agri-Coach to provide support with their farm customers locally. Senior Agri-Coaches have many disciplines. We have Senior Agri-Coaches that are crop specialists, like wheat or cotton specialists. We've got soil scientists, entomologists that focus on insects, and pathologists that focus on disease. So there's a broad bench of support. We have about 35 Senior Agri-Coaches, and most of these folks have either come out of an academic background from universities or colleges, or from government agencies and those types of folks. We have some Senior Agri-Coaches that also have farm backgrounds and work as with farm customers directly as well. And so that's kind of the background of the model. So as a business owner, if you were to look at deploying a coach into your business, that's kind of the way our model operates. As we've been working with dealerships, precision ag dealerships, it's been really clear that the agronomic expertise needs to be combined with the technical support, and with those two aspects, you can drive equipment sales. And most equipment today is coming with technologies that growers can help manage their farms. And dealers who offer those IT services backed with agronomic intelligence can attract farmers and keep loyal customers and drive their business forward. Right now, what I'd like to do is introduce you to Lance Lindblom. Lance is an Agri-Coach in Montana that works with Torgetson's, which is a Case IH dealer. And Lance has been a coach with us for the last couple of years. And Lance, if you're on the line, can you tell us a little bit about your business and experience with working with your farm customers?
Hey, thanks, Darren and Precision Farming Dealer. I appreciate the time to talk a little bit about how I see and the dealership sees the advantages of having an in-house agronomist. And first of all, I'd like to give a little bit of background on the dealership that I work for. I work for Torgerson's. It's a fourth-generation family-owned implement dealer. Along with the 8 locations across Montana, they also own and operate 2 farms. I think that last part, to own and operate 2 farms, has quickened their visions on the need to have an outside agronomy support, not only in the dealership but in the area. And when Torgerson's made the decision to go this way, there was numerous hurdles that they had to come over, but 2 of the main ones were, how do you bring an agronomist or an agronomy coach into a dealership under the dealership umbrella and not make that look like that their whole purpose there is to sell equipment? So that, how do you bring an unbiased, how do you make that agronomist's role be unbiased? And the second was with all of the disciplines that producers are faced with right now, with the precision side, the data, the agronomy, the plants, the genetics, precision, and all of those different things that are always changing. How do you train that agronomist and keep him up to date at all times, him or her at all times? So Agri-Trend, the model and that partnership was formed 2 years ago to fill that. And what I wanted to talk about was the 3 areas that we see the advantage of having an agronomist in-house. This is the advantages I'm going to be talking about are above what we call the break-even. We want that agronomy division. It's an added service, similar to you'd think about if you're adding a lawyer or an accountant to a dealership. That's an added service to that dealership. So it's an added service that those clients and the producers that they receive. So we don't want their agronomy service or the division to be working in the negative on the dealership. So this is above our break even. And when we looked at doing this, we knew this was going to be a different endeavor. It's new to this area. It's new to the dealership. Our goals were at year 3 to 5. We wanted the agronomy, excuse me, the agronomy division to be working in the black. This will be our second full agronomy season, and our cropping season starts the 1st of September. And our goals right now, how we have them set, by the end of next year, 2 out of our 3, if not all 3 coaches, will be working in the black. So above that, the 3 areas that we see an advantage of having an agronomy coach in-house is, probably the first one is that constant in-house agronomy education that we bring. Our division, each one of the coaches sits down or is ahead of their agronomy division in that store, in that location. Once a week, we sit down with the other departments, whether it be service or parts or sales, as they have a round table meeting. we discuss what's going on in the locations, the challenge that they're having. And when we come to the agronomy side of things, now all of a sudden we're introducing that whole team, what their clients are seeing, what the producers in the areas are seeing, whether it be crop health or whether it be fertility issues or markets or precision challenges that they're facing. We're able to kind of give them a firsthand, very local report, and we also educate them. Agri-Trend's goal has always been to be coaching. Part of that coaching part is educating. So we sit down and we go through it. We'll pull out plants, we'll pull out satellite imagery. So constantly, weekly, sometimes even more than weekly, that in-house training. And what that allows that is those individuals take that back to they're the head of their department, so individuals underneath them, people underneath them, they're able to use that information. It helps their confidence. It makes them more professional in their conversations with the producers. So the second thing I see a benefit of having an agronomist in-house is, I would call it like indirect sales. Agri-Trend does not sell product. We do not sell equipment, but working with an agronomist or working with an individual does at times create sales down the road. Probably a good example of this that I see is in my environment is producers wanting to move to that precision, wanting to move to variable rate, but they're not going to make that leap or that jump or that step without some outside help. And when they do that, and a couple of clients that I've had do that, when they're moving to that direction, we know that there's equipment upgrades, there's software upgrades, there's monitors, there's nozzles, then the list can keep going on and on, different types of openers. So that relationship with that agronomy coach allows them to be more comfortable about making that decision and moving into that direction. Then the last thing I'd like to talk about, and then I'll turn this back over to Darren, is really what we do as coaches. We're agronomy coaches. We're not consultants. We don't just hand over a recommendation. This concept, I'll be the first to admit, was pretty new to me. And when what we do, our sole goal, our sole purpose in relationship with that producer is to create him to be more efficient and to be more profitable. So if we're not moving in that direction, he has no reason to be working with us. So once we develop that relationship and that client or that producer understands that he knows that what we're talking about and how we're dealing with him is 100% focused on the success of his operation. But that also means that I would call this part a little bit about putting fires out, that we also coach them. And coaching sometimes is strictly that. We have to coach them and direct them and show them exactly what's going on. And in our business, we know a lot of times that equipment takes the first hit when something goes wrong, blaming the equipment. And it's the coach's job to go out there and define that. Was it exactly the equipment? The buck stops with the coach. That's the end of the road. When we're out there, once they realize that we're not out there to sell equipment, or we're not out there to sell a product, we're out there for their success, they realize that what we're talking about, how we're moving them in those different directions. And it stops there. So we put out a lot of fires, help set up equipment, help do some tweaking, and all those little things that go along with that. So that's my talk. Darren, I'll send it back to you.
Fantastic. Thanks, Lance. I appreciate your comments and your time here this morning. So next on the line, we've got Scott Meldrum, and Scott runs the IS department for Van Wall in Iowa. And Lance, if you're on the line, or sorry, Scott, if you're on the line, I'll turn it over to you to tell us how you use the Agri-Coaches in your business.
Very good. What I wanted to talk about was very similar to what Lance was saying. I've got three major topics or points I want to discuss. The first one was how Van Wall has integrated the Agri-Coach into our dealership. We realized or identified about 4 years ago that there was a gap between what the equipment could do and agronomy. we needed to close that gap so we can make sure we're selling the right piece of equipment. Our sales team needed a resource in-house, and we saw Agri-Trend as that resource. The other avenue that Van Wall is using is to provide an extra or additional line of in revenue for our integrated solutions department. We're along the same lines as Lance, that we want to see our Agri-Trend or integrated solutions department in the black. And as most people know, that's kind of difficult because most of what either an Agri-Coach or an integrated solutions specialist do is in a support role. The second item or topic that I wanted to discuss was, how does Van Wall utilize the Agri-Coach? We're utilizing them to strengthen the relationships with the customers, whether it be on the equipment side or a technology side or even a service side. They fulfill the area the customer was wanting. They were hungry for some sort of agronomy support or validation, and they wanted some guidance from a source that wasn't selling products, which leads to the unbiased opinion. Like Lance said, our coaches are out there, and their number one job is to help the customer, not sell products. The second item under there is to leverage the Agri-Coach to keep an ag sales team informed. We have bi-monthly meetings with our ag sales team, and at every other meeting we have one of our coaches there to discuss current or newly emerging agronomic topics, what's coming down the line. They'll also address thoughts if a piece of equipment coming down, how it works agronomically. We also provide insight into how equipment choices and setting up of that equipment affect agronomy. Most of that's centered currently around planter setup and getting seed into the ground, but they're really getting closer and working harder with nutrient applications. The last item I want to talk about a little bit was the value that the Senior Coach platform brings to a dealership. The Senior Coach provides a support structure for the Agri-Coach and allows the coach who's out there in the field to have someone to call, verify what they're seeing, get advice, to reassure themselves that what they're doing is correct. The other support or value of a Senior Coach is through field days or plot days. When we put on a plot or a field day, we bring in a number of Senior Coaches, and they provide that level of expertise that's not always readily available locally. They also provide a valuable tool or guidance when we're wanting to set up certain field trials, because as we know, farmers want to know how certain ideas or processes work in their area, not just what university studies say. So we're utilizing these Senior Coaches to help us perform trials in our own area to provide localized data. With that, I feel that the Senior Coaches are an invaluable part of Agri-Trend, because when you have more than one set of eyes looking at a crop plan or whatnot, it eliminates or reduces the chance to lose revenue. With that, I'd like to thank Agri-Trend for having me on today, and I'm going to turn it back over to Darren.
Okay, thank you very much, Scott and Lance. And I know we'll have a little time at the end here to field some questions, and so I think Scott and Lance will both be staying on in case you have some additional questions for those guys. And so, yeah, I think as we look at the state of precision agronomy or precision across North America, really, the industry is really quite polarized and has been, and so the agronomy folks, working in the field of agronomy, are challenged to try and figure out what do we need to do to take a prescription and actually have it be completed at farm level. And so farm customers are working with their agronomy folks and looking for prescriptions to deliver new ROI on their farm. And oftentimes those prescriptions hit roadblocks that the equipment doesn't talk to one another, or there's components of the hardware that become a stopper. And many agronomists look at that and are challenged to try and help their customers resolve those issues. And so from a technology standpoint, many of the folks I'm sure on the call are looking at, we've got technology that can solve problems and can deliver those prescriptions at farm level, and you're able to solve those hardware problems. And oftentimes when you're talking to farm customers about the value of the equipment and the value of the precision technology that's on board the equipment that they're purchasing, really that return comes down to an agronomist effectively creating prescriptions that will take advantage of the technology that you're selling to those customers. And what Scott and Lance have talked about is by combining the agronomy and technology within the dealership, you're able to marry both disciplines together and bring added value to that farm customer. And so by having that happen in the dealership, the sales folks that are focused on selling technology can be more informed and understand the agronomic and return on investment implications of that hardware, and can be more effective at selling the hardware. And the agronomy folks can be supported by that hardware as well to ensure that the farmer is getting full value out of the prescriptions. And so when we started working with dealerships, Agri-Trend's model is an example of how that can work. And there's other examples of how to make that work. And so what we've tried to focus on is why is that work, and how can that bring value to you and your dealership. And so really the focus here is ensuring that those hardware sales and that and those support for those customers is key. And so from Agri-Trend's perspective, what we believe has made our model unique is it's a defined process. We're not coming out with a defined prescription. We're coming out with a defined process that helps the coach look at what's available for analytics and information on a local basis. That process can work on all different types of cropping systems and production systems, and that process can bring real value to those farm customers. The software platform is a key of how that process is engaged with the farm customers and delivered to growers. And from a dealer, we look at you as the customer. And so when we roll out our coaching program at the dealership, the dealership is the customer. And so a dealership would hire a coach to work in the dealership. Typically, our dealerships would hire a coach, put them on a salary, and then their job is to provide the coaching services for that dealership. As the demand for those services grow, typically dealerships will add additional coaches, and as both Scott and Lance discussed, the focus is always to ensure that coaching service is running in the black. And as the coaches bring on more customers, they can continue to do that and to add additional value to the dealerships. Obviously, the retention of the records and the retention of the farm customers is key to the dealership. And in the event that a coach leaves the dealership, those farm records and the customer information is retained with the dealership. And because it's a very defined process, we can be very effective at bringing a new coach in, train the coach on how to deliver a similar service, and be up and running again very, very quickly. So why consider Agri-Trend? We're industry-leading agronomic expertise. The objective is the third-party collaboration that leads to proven customer return. We allow for, here's a great opportunity to bring the agronomy and the technology together, and by having the senior Agri-Coaches, you know that your local coach is supported by technical expertise. So with that, turn it back to Jack here. Is there any questions that have come in?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Darren. Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Lance, for some insightful perspective there. Yeah, we did want to get into the Q&A part here, and we did have a few interesting questions pop in from some of our attendees. The first one here, and this one might be directed at Lance and Scott, but the question is, what was the tipping point for the dealerships as far as wanting to make that push, make that investment into agronomic services and adding that as a part of their precision business?
This is Scott, and where we were was about 4 years ago. It appeared that John Deere was going in that direction, that our equipment was getting smarter and smarter and able to handle this agronomy directives, or what, if you will, that we could help the farmer, and the equipment is only going to get so big and so fast and so productive, but we needed to figure out how can we go from that 180 bushel or 200 bushel to 240, 250, 300 even, or north of there. And the way to do it was to be more efficient with the ground that is available to us, and streamline our processes, figure out our certain resources that we have and allocate them in a very effective manner. And Agri-Trend was the way to, we thought was the way to do that, by bringing that in-house and offer as a service not only to the customer but to our dealer personnel as well.
This is Lance, and I would reiterate what Scott was just said. That need of how fast the technology side was catching up, and how the clients in the area were really starting to ask about that, and feeling that they wanted to move that way, but they definitely needed some help. So I think probably the precision side was a tipping point. But as we have gone and in partnership with Agri-Trend, we've also seen this other disciplines in there, especially in this area on the crop scouting, the needs for the boots on the ground, that expertise. And Scott had talked about, the network that we work with as senior coaches, that ability to address a cropping issue before it becomes a major issue is probably another key part of what we do.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the answers to that question. Another question we had come in here, and this one might be directed at Darren, but for Agri-Trend, do you have any kind of records or information, I guess, on the size of the dealership that would kind of fit these services that you guys are offering and make use of an Agri-Coach?
Yeah, thanks. We've worked with a number of different dealerships. We've got some smaller dealerships that are working with a couple hundred customers, and we've got other dealerships that are working with, like the guys on the phone, with multiple locations over quite broad areas. So really from a standpoint of who would be interested in offering these kind of services, they're dealerships that are looking to have close relationships with their farm customers, looking to increase the amount of stickiness and customer retention, and that have customers that are asking questions about how to solve problems, how to adopt the new technologies on their farm. And so from a coach standpoint, an individual coach can work with a few customers. We've actually got independent coaches that work outside of dealerships as well that can work with 15 or 20 customers and have it be a good profitable business as well. So I don't think there is really a restriction on where the dealership how big the dealership needs to be effective. Likewise, from a farm customer, I'm often asked, what's the demographic of the farm customer that would be interested in buying coaching services, and that demographic again is really quite broad as well. And so really the farmers that are interested in coaching services are typically a busy farmer that's looking to have a trusted advisor that they can work with on their farm. And so sometimes those farms are quite small, but very intensive, and are looking to augment their management or augment their support on their farm with somebody that can work closely with them. Sometimes those farms are very large and are looking for that level of support to help with managing logistics and managing, just need additional support to try and manage the complexity of managing a large farm. Like we're talking about today, there's many farmers that are looking to take advantage of the opportunities that the new technologies and new equipment present on their farm, and so oftentimes we're involved in that type of thing as well.
Thanks, Darren, for that perspective. Next question we had come in was probably best directed maybe at Lance and Scott. Darren, maybe if you want to chime in afterwards, but the question is, what liability does entering into the agronomy arena expose a dealership to? And maybe Scott, if you want to weigh in on this one first, and Lance, you can add your perspective.
The liability that we're opened up to was something that really concerned me as a manager. But as I spent more and more time with the folks at Agri-Trend, the senior coaches, it was very apparent that we aren't going to put a recommendation out there or work with a grower that is going to do them harm. Everything should maintain a status quo or improve. We should not do any agronomic harm. As you know, weather is always a focus, but it was a concern. But usually what we've seen is growers will start off small. We don't like to ask for anything less than probably 300 or 400 acres, because areas smaller than that doesn't really provide the data or the information. So we like to see 500 acres plus. I would certainly love somebody to give me all of their acres, but when they're trying something new, they want to dip their toe, and we've seen those customers who start off with 400, 500, 600 acres with us see the value and feel very comfortable. They develop a relationship with the Agri-Coach about to the level of they feel they have a personal agronomist, and that's why Darren said that we usually try to limit the number of growers that an agronomist works with, so they can still maintain that personal level. We're not in the sales or retail agronomy, so we're wanting to develop that relationship and know their operation intimately. It's not just fertility and yield goals. We know what equipment they have, the capability of that equipment, their comfort level with precision technology. All plays into it, and we talk about future past questions. We do the DOS analysis, things such as that, to really understand and know where the grower wants to go, so we're not steering them away from what they're comfortable with.
Yeah, and I agree what Scott was saying, that the liability issue definitely was a concern when we first started this, and the way we have to look at it is our recommendations are based not only is it just our recommendations, there's also another set of eyes that are on top of that. And as Scott had said, we try to keep our numbers down. The clients that we're dealing with, anywhere from 10 to 15, they do see this as their personal agronomist. They do, as that relationship builds, they understand that all of our recommendations that we are doing is to help them succeed. We're backing that recommendation not only with the coaching network, but also a tremendous amount of analytical that we put in there, soil and tissue and resin testing. So it's not off the cuff. It's a thought process that we go through, a system of checks and balances. We want to make sure those recommendations are correct. On this individual, or in this location where I'm at, we don't specifically, of course, we don't promote any products, so we don't go out there and specifically, on the chemical side of things, give them a certain level or a certain recommendation on a product. We can address what the issue is. We can address some chemistry that can affect that, but they have to take that next step. That's on their part.
And this is Darren here. I agree that I think that's a common question as people are making this decision, and especially if you're not as familiar with making the agronomy recommendations, and it was a concern of ours as well. Obviously, as the business continues to grow and we have more and more coaches, I come back to our quality control process, and that's been key and fundamental for us throughout the whole growth of Agri-Trend, is that our recommendations need to be agronomically sound. And like Lance mentioned, really what we're doing is we're identifying problems and identifying what needs to be done. And the farm customers, then will need to go to a crop input retail or the retailer, or to buy the products that are required. And so we'll make a recommendation that a certain insect or a certain weed needs to be taken care of, and suggest what products to be used, and then the customer will actually go and purchase those products from their retailer. Our experience has been that there's been very little problems in the way of liability that we've needed to deal with, and through 16 years, thankfully, and really it comes back to what the guy said, that this person is a trusted advisor working directly with that farm customer, and that's a long-term, ongoing relationship that growers don't want to damage any more than we do, and typically what happens if there is an expectation that doesn't get delivered on, or something does go wrong, typically the coach is involved in helping to identify why things didn't work out properly, and look at mitigating that the impact of what's happening. And so it's the process and the attention that the coach is paying to the situation that really relieves a lot of those problems, not causing them.
Well, thanks, gentlemen, for the response to that question. You obviously alluded to the information being a very valuable commodity for the customer, and obviously protecting that, taking care of it, ensuring it's going to be the best is critical. Another question we had, and this is actually kind of combining a number of questions we've had on this topic. This would probably be directed, perhaps again at Lance and Scott, but obviously there's a number of different opportunities for farm customers to get that agronomic service. So how do you guys, working in that dealership environment, kind of balance that opportunity with obviously maybe some of the other service providers, whether it's a cooperative or another local agronomist that might be offering services? And kind of the second part to that question would just be, what's the incentive, I guess, for customers that would want to perhaps purchase those agronomic services from a dealership versus, again, that other retailer, cooperative independent agronomist that maybe they had been working with in the past?
I'll take this one first. On one part of that, for one thing, on our background and our network. So comparing, when I talk to clients, we have a tremendous, it's not just the coach that you're hiring, it's also the network that supports them. So we offer, in 9 times out of 10 times when we're comparing us to different agronomy services out there local, we're offering something that's very, very in-depth at a very, very high level. And as far as why would they rather go, why would they want to hire an agronomy service to the dealership, something we have done unique with the dealership here is it's an agronomy division, but it's basically it's underneath the umbrella of the dealership, but all of our branding, all of our billing, everything we do is directly driven by Agri-Trend, from the stickers on our truck to our clothing, attire. So there's still we are underneath the dealership, but the clients out there, when they view us in the community or out in the field, they realize that our backing is through Agri-Trend.
I'd like to really echo what Lance had to say. How we don't run into trouble with other providers is a proactive approach. We need to go out there when we pinpoint or recognize that there's another provider, a co-op, whatnot, and go out there and explain to them we don't want to take business away from them. We actually want to help drive business to them. They're the provider, they're the applicator, such as that. Case in point, we were working with a grower, and he did not intend to put any more fertilizer on about 800 acres. And through our soil sampling and whatnot, we worked out with the grower that we thought that he needed that, and he went to his co-op and signed up another 800 acres with them. Now that co-op is one of our best friends. And like Lance said, our coaches, they work for the dealership. However, they wear Agri-Trend attire, things such as that, to basically understand that they are set up as a separate entity.
And I think Scott's experience has been quite consistent with our other coaches. That initially there can be some apprehension with the local agronomists and local retails, and retails in particular, concerned about possibly the prescriptions or the recommendations from the coach coming in and causing some tension for change with that dealership, or maybe interfering with what they were doing. Our experience, though, has been that when a farmer does work with a coach, typically their crop input purchases and the product mix that they're purchasing might change somewhat, but generally to the benefit of the retailer. Not that we're trying to push product, or cause the customer or the farmer to buy a lot more product. Really, our mission is to help farmers reallocate scarce resources. And so when we do that, when we start analyzing and looking deeper at what's going to drive additional return for that farm customer, typically, farmers may have been focused on one particular nutrient, for example, nitrogen, which nitrogen is always key, but they may be doing that at the so focused on one product that they're missing some opportunities with some others. And those other products, sometimes they're higher margin products, and like Scott mentioned, sometimes it's just an oversight, that a missed opportunity that could go after. And so after the initial maybe questions from local retail, typically the results have been very positive.
Well, thanks again, gentlemen, for the answer to that question. I know a complex one, but I think you guys offered some good examples and explanation there of how you guys manage that balance in a very productive way. We do have time for one last question here. And again, this might be directed to each of you. Perhaps we can start with Scott and get his thoughts on this one first. But could you describe a little bit, obviously being, in that dealership setting, kind of the dynamic of working with either, the precision farming department or personnel in that setting, and also kind of how that collaboration works, working in that equipment side, the technology side, the agronomic side, just providing a little insight into, I guess, how that flow happens.
How we look at that here is that the precision or the AMS, integrated solutions, whatever we're going to call them, are focused on more so the equipment side or the technology side, but they are fielding questions when they're out with the grower about agronomy that they may not have intimate knowledge of, so they have a resource there. So we allow our Agri-Coach to be an expert within the dealership, provide support. It's very, very working back and forth. Similarly, if the agronomist or Agri-Coach is out with the grower and there's a technology question, they know the basics on how to get it going, but they can get right back to the integrated solution specialist and get the answer right away. We've actually integrated some technology within the dealership that allows to use a mobile app and the camera on the mobile app. So regardless of who is out there, we can get in contact very quickly with the other person to provide their expertise, even if they're in a remote situation. And it's real time, and it really speeds up and gets the uptime going. But it's a very, very good relationship. It has to start obviously with respect. They respect each other. Each has a certain skill set. And then when you bring in the ag sales team on that, their expertise is equipment. And the agronomist now, or the Agri-Coach, is able to bring in that level of expertise to help support that. And as Lance said, drive some sales or help turn some sales in our favor.
I would echo what Scott says. We see a lot of back and forth between the precision and the precision and the agronomy side. The clients that I work with are when the ones that are wanting to move in that direction and go to precision. They're talking to us about the agronomy and building those prescriptions. But we go to that next step. There's a relationship there that we have to build with the precision department too, and same with their clients. They're talking to people on the precision and the equipment side, and they'll run into clients that are wanting to do precision agronomy, and they're needing that help. And they're not comfortable in just jumping into precision without that agronomy backing in there. So they're talking with us about agronomy and helping us bridge those gaps with those individuals. So
I think the bridge from our perspective is the same. I think our focus has been around ensuring that we have a brand agnostic platform that brings agronomy together with whatever technology the farmer or the dealer is using or selling. And so, as an example today, we've got a John Deere dealership and a Case dealership. Obviously, you're using somewhat different equipment. Agri-Trend actually is a Trimble company, and we as a Trimble company, our philosophy has been is to be brand agnostic, and we can work with whatever equipment is being used with the farmer. Data management is a key element of that whole component and how we interact with different equipment, and the prescriptions that the coach makes needs to work with whatever equipment the farmer is using, whether it's John Deere, Case, or something else. And so from an Agri-Trend perspective, we're focused on working with all different types of equipment, sensors, and precision technology that is being used at the farm level.
Well, thank you again, gentlemen. I appreciate the perspectives and your time today for this presentation. That's all the time we have today, and just a reminder that today's presentation and audio will be made available on the Precision Farming Dealer website. And make sure to stay tuned through our e-newsletter and daily email updates for upcoming webinar speakers and topics this year, which will include part 3 of our series on bridging the gap between hardware and agronomic services in precision farming. On behalf of Darren, Lance, and Scott, and the Agri-Trend team, thank you for joining us today for this webinar. When you leave the program, a short survey about your experience with today's presentation will pop up. Please let us know what you think of the live event, and let us know what topics you'd like to see covered in future webinars. Thanks again.